Did you know Zimbabwean history remembers many kings but almost no queens? From Great Zimbabwe to the Ndebele Kingdom, powerful rulers shaped this nation, yet the women who lived in these kingdoms are rarely mentioned. So where did their stories go? Well, this week in Zimbabwean history, we spotlight some of the Zimbabwean women whose work had an impact on nation building, while also investigating the silence of Zimbabwean matriarchs in historical records. For generations, Zimbabwean history has largely been told through a singular lens, that of political and military leadership, and which is overwhelmingly male. The Granger of Great Zimbabwe, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, speaks volumes of sophisticated states, but its legacy is predominantly linked to male kings and their dynasties. The Mutapa Empire, successor to Great Zimbabwe, so powerful when the Mutapas expand their influence across the plateau. Similarly, the Ndebele Kingdom, forged by Mzilikazi, was structured around a powerful monarchy, with its history defined by the reigns of Mzilikazi and Lobengula. Their diplomatic engagements, internal governance, military campaigns, and strategic ambitions are recorded, but this is largely from certain perspectives. And even though their narratives are crucial and foundational, they paint an incomplete picture as they leave a vast silent space where half of humanity should stand. In the chronicles of Zimbabwean royalty, the names of queens, royal wives, and queen mothers are conspicuously absent. Figures such as Lozikeyi, Lobengula's most senior wife, are rarely talked about. Mzilikazi's monumental journey is recorded, but his wives who established new homesteads and lineages in a new land are largely footnotes. Similarly, in ancient Shona kingdoms, specific royal women are rarely elevated to the same historical prominence as their male counterparts. The question then becomes whether they existed or not, and if their contributions were simply documented differently, or perhaps not at all. Now, while the crown might have eluded them in the Western sense, Shona women wielded immense power through spiritual authority and lineage. The most celebrated example is Mbuya Nehanda, a spirit medium whose leadership galvanized the first Chimrenga, the resistance against colonial rule in the late 19th century. She was not a queen by title, but her spiritual guidance commanded respect that transcended political boundaries and inspired entire communities to fight for their land and heritage. And she was not the only Nehanda. Nehanda was a title passed through generations of spirit mediums, each believed to channel the same ancestral spirit, and as such, multiple women held that authority across centuries, showing that female spiritual authority in Zimbabwe was institutional. And even though the Nehanda name held sway, it was not an anomaly. Throughout Shona cosmology, women served as vital spirit mediums, acting as conduits between the living and the ancestors. They were rain-making priestesses and custodians of sacred knowledge, holding sway over decisions that would affect thousands. Their power wasn't about political office, but about their connection to the divine and their authority in preserving tradition and communal well-being. Across the plateau, within the Ndebele monarchy, a queen who sat as co-ruler was uncommon, but in the royal household, women held distinct and powerful roles. The king's numerous wives were drawn from powerful allied clans and were not just domestic partners, but were also strategic political alliances. Senior wives like Lozikeyi Lobengula's wife, had great influence. Lozikeyi is often dismissed in colonial records, but in reality, she was the strategic heartbeat of the kingdom, particularly after Lobengula's disappearance and death. Acting as the de facto queen regent, Lozikeyi managed the logistics of resistance in the first Umvukela and supplied warriors with weaponry to fight, making her a great leader in the survival of the Ndebele people during their darkest hours. So the question becomes, why this glaring absence from the written record? The answer lies in the very nature of historical documentation itself. Pre-colonial Zimbabwe relied heavily on oral traditions which preserved knowledge and lineage. In these narratives, women's roles were often implicitly understood rather than catalogued as political leadership. Then came the colonial era. European missionaries, administrators, and historians arrived with their own cultural lenses. They prioritized what they understood: kings, wars, treaties, all male domains in their own societies. They sought to identify and negotiate with male chiefs and kings, often overlooking the complex and multifaceted leadership structures where women played vital, if less overt, roles. This Western definition of leadership, focused on political titles, inadvertently created a gender bias that filtered out the contributors of countless influential women, rendering them historically invisible. But that does not mean women were not there. Women were the anchors of communal life and the custodians of cultural memory. They were strategists, healers, educators, leaders, all shaping society in a way that was fundamental, even if less outwardly visible to a colonial gaze. The search for Zimbabwe's hidden matriarchs is far from over. These are stories that need to be told and to be preserved. And with that in mind, which powerful pre-colonial and early colonial Zimbabwean matriarchs do you think deserve to have their stories known? Please let me know in the comments below, and also let me know what you think of the erasure of women's names and Zimbabwean history. Was it deliberate, or do you think that there is nothing noteworthy to write about? And while at it, please do leave a like, a share, a subscription, and also check out other videos on this channel. Till next week, and goodbye.